Okay, we are live. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, good whatever it is, wherever you are on this beautiful planet that we all occupy. I'm Chris Atlee, also known as the Atheist Pastor, and I've got a really cool guest today. Really cool guest. So a good friend of mine who I'm really, we've had a lot of conversations, and I'm really keen to have him share his story with everyone out there. So whether you're watching this on YouTube, Facebook, on one of the, I think we're on about 10 different podcasts, so maybe you're listening on Spotify or Apple or wherever you are. It's good to see you, and thank you for coming along. So I've got Ed, also known as the grumpy old dude, which is a little bit funny because anyone who knows Ed will know that he's neither grumpy nor old. He's I'm pretty sure he's a dude, so I'm going to give him that one. But how the devil are you, Ed?
I'm doing pretty good. Thanks for not calling me old, even though I feel pretty ancient right now this morning. But
no, well, I'm approaching a milestone birthday, so I don't want people calling me old, so I won't call you old. We'll keep it quite nice. Now, Ed, you've got a really interesting story, and I definitely want to dig right into it. And you are a former white nationalist.
I actually make the claim that I'm a former white supremacist because I differentiate that because a lot of white nationalists are political in nature and white supremacists are more violent as opposed to, just doing political activism and stuff like that. And because of the way I was in my past, I do tell people that I was a former white supremacist because I didn't really care about politics. I wanted to destroy anything that wasn't me.
Mm-hmm. And how did you find yourself? Where did you first come across white supremacy or the idea of white supremacy? Was it something you were raised with, or is it something you stumbled across later in life?
Yeah, I definitely was not raised, in that kind of lifestyle. And I've been telling people lately that more and more details come out, every time I do one of these interviews. And I think it's because when I first started doing YouTube here a few months ago, I was nervous about telling everybody stuff about myself, but no, I wasn't raised in that. I do have quite a few family members who are interracial. A couple of my aunts married black men, and, I have all kinds of cousins that are Spanish or black or, something other than white. And it wasn't, a thing when I was growing up. When I was 19 years old, I was an amateur MMA fighter, and I had just won a fight in Atlantic City that was going to push me up, a little further to becoming pro. It was still with a small time fight league or, whatever, but I don't know if anybody out there will remember it. I had won a fight and had signed a contract with EFC, Extreme Fighting Championship. And on the way back to the celebration party for me winning this fight, I had an altercation with a gentleman who was beating up his girlfriend. And I intervened and, stopped him from hitting this girl. He pulled the knife on me. And we argued for a minute. When he came at me with the knife, I bent his arm back and kicked his feet out. When I landed on top of him, the knife stabbed him in the side of his neck and sliced his carotid artery, and he died. Because of my martial arts background, the jury in my case convicted me of first-degree involuntary homicide or manslaughter, and I was sentenced to 30 years in prison.
Oh, wow.
I did eventually.
How old were you at this point? How old were you?
I was 20. I was 20 when I got convicted. I was 19 at the time of the incident. I was 20 years old when I got convicted. and I don't know why my lights keep doing that, but yeah, I was 20 years old when I got convicted, and I did eventually have that case overturned, but regardless, I spent 12 and a half years in prison.
Okay.
When I got to prison, I ran into a lot of different groups and lifestyles that I knew nothing about. One of those groups being the Nation of Islam, which was the most prevalent group. And, you know, anybody that says systemic racism isn't a thing, I can tell you from my past experience, it most definitely is a thing, because a young white person like myself going to prison is definitely a minority, because the majority of people in prison are Black or other minorities.
Now, when it comes to the Nation of Islam, for those who aren't familiar with what the Nation of Islam is, did you want to just quickly cover that for them?
Yeah, the Nation of Islam does not represent the Islam or Islamic religion. They do, you know, believe most of what Islam actually teaches, but they have their own different set of beliefs, and they are a Black supremacist group. And I will debate anybody on that topic. If anybody in the NOI wants to try and challenge me on that, feel free to come to my channel. And
I think they actually do acknowledge that they are a Black supremacist group, though, don't they? Because it's a lot of it comes from, you know, I guess, you know, in the 60s, you know, Malcolm X and Muhammad Ali was involved to a lesser extent with them, and
they like to claim they are a separatist group. They just want a separate piece of the world for, you know, their people. They don't hate anybody until you meet them in person, and they will tell you how much they hate you for being white.
So I guess as a 20-year-old or a 19-year-old going into prison, that's going to be fairly daunting, especially looking down the barrel of 30 years, I can imagine.
Yeah.
I guess you're lucky in, you know, how to defend yourself. So what do you do when you've got a group in there like the Nation of Islam that is targeting you? How do you, as a 20-year-old going into prison, you know, probably very naive to the world, how do you deal with that?
One of the things that did keep me from, you know, getting completely slaughtered when I first got to jail, not even to prison, but just the jail, waiting to be sentenced and going to prison, is I learned real quick from, you know, older guys who have been to prison before, stick with your own. And they, you know, they'll grab you up and be like, hey, come over here with us. You know, they don't want you over there, and this is why. And they start telling you, you know, what Nation of Islam is, or another group, the Black Hebrew Israelites.
Okay.
They're more of a Christian identity group. They don't agree with Nation of Islam on theology, but they do agree with them on racial aspects of things. So you get older white guys that say, hey, come over here with us. You know, this is what is referred to commonly as Cracker Beach. This is where the white guys hang out. We don't go over there. They don't come over here. And this is why. And
is there a bit of a treaty in the jail where, you know, if you're white and you're hanging with the whites, the blacks or the other racial groups will leave you alone, not wanting to start a big conflict, or is it a bit of a free for all at times?
It goes both ways. Sometimes it's like, okay, they're not bothering us, we're not going to bother them. And then other times somebody will be having a bad day, get hammered at court and get a lengthy sentence and just decide, you know, it's whatever. I feel like punching somebody in the face, I'm going to go after them. and it turns into a, blown up race riot just because.
So you mentioned that you ended up doing. Sorry, I guess we'll keep. Sorry, I was about to skip ahead. See it. So I'm at the disadvantage here, I guess, where I do know where the story ends up. So I'll try not to skip ahead for everyone else. Okay, so some of these older guys sort of grab you and say, "Hey, this is where you want to be."
Yeah.
Do you think was that out of a genuinely we're looking after you, or is that a recruitment style thing, or maybe a bit of both?
No, when I was first in jail, when I was first incarcerated, before I had gotten found guilty and actually went to prison, it was local guys that knew my family and they were looking out for me.
Okay.
They didn't want to see me get hurt. They didn't want to see me get in trouble because everybody, knew I was there for actually defending myself. And we all thought that I was going to be found not guilty and go home. So they were trying to tell me, hey, look, no matter what happens, do not get yourself in trouble, because that's going to make things worse for your case. Once I got found guilty and I got sent to prison, I went to Trenton State Prison. And it wasn't very long after I got to Trenton State Prison that I was recruited into, I can't even really say I was recruited into it. I banded together with a couple of other people that I grew up with, and we started a skinhead prison gang. It's weird because at the time I did this, I was still really good friends with a black man, and I never gave up that friendship. And I think the whole reason we started this prison gang, it was one, I was angry at being found guilty. Two, I was angry at people being racist towards me and wanted to do something to fight back other than actually engaging in physical confrontation. And it was, if we have enough numbers, they'll leave us alone. So we're going to make our own thing.
So do you think it's almost like, I guess, in prisons, because I guess, it's almost like if it gets flipped on its head where, out in, I guess, general American society, being white, you're in the majority, and there's the non-white people tend to be more likely to be discriminated against. Whereas in prison, I guess that flips, there's an African-American majority and you find yourself almost with those roles reversed.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And one of the biggest problems with that is you have white guys going to prison who weren't racist. And then they get to prison and they get attacked by these supremacist or extremist groups. And now they agree with, far right ideologies. And when they get out of prison, they further that and try and recruit people from society to join up with these groups because of what happened to them in prison.
Yeah.
It's a vicious cycle that, the United States definitely needs to address. We need some kind of prison reform, because it's absolutely furthering racism in this country.
Well, and it's not only the case in America. I know that here in Australia, I've got a friend of mine who's a former prison guard, and he sort of tells a similar story where, I guess the indigenous Australians stick with each other. The Lebanese stick with each other, the white people stick with each other, the islanders stick with each other. It becomes very racially. So I wonder if it's actually just something that's symptomatic, in the prison system in general. It could be. It sounds as though it probably is, and I guess what the solution to that is. I guess that's what people get paid lots of money to work out. So hopefully they can hurry up and work it out for us. But I guess so. Moving forward, so you've started, I guess, this skinhead gang, and essentially as for self-defense. At what point does, I guess, the racist ideology start to I guess seep into your your way of thinking?
Yeah, right around the time that I got together with these other friends of mine, and we started state prison skinheads in New Jersey. I started learning about, the skinhead culture and the history, and how, here in America, we started the neo-Nazi skinheads and why they did that. And I had people giving me these pseudo history lessons, as I like to call them, about what really happened during World War II and why Hitler was right, which I know now that all of that is, I know now that is definitely way
things can be twisted in any way with a lot of that stuff, but yeah.
But when you're that young, and listen, I was 20 years old. According to the law, I was a grown man. I was an adult. I was still a kid. I didn't know about a lot of history and stuff like that. I mean, it's not like I didn't do bad in school, but a lot of stuff, isn't covered in school. You won't learn about ancient Roman culture in regular high school. That's college level stuff. And I didn't have that opportunity. So when I have these older guys that seem like they know a whole lot more than me telling me this stuff, I believed it. I was like, oh, wow, I never knew that. And they're like, oh, yeah, you won't know that because the Jews don't want you to know.
And I guess especially you're not going to sit there and argue, well, I don't think that's right, when they're people who are going to essentially be assisting, you in being protected and your safety in there.
But it's not even all that. I questioned a lot of it. Like, what? Get out of here. That can't be true. And they will show you their own little propaganda paperwork and say, oh, look at this. Can you deny this? What do you have, to argue against it? And it's like, I don't have anything. And
if you're not knowledgeable about a subject, I mean, you can't argue it and debate it. So,
yeah. So, I got sucked into the conspiracy theory, it as horrendous as it is. And it's not like I'm making excuses for it. I'm just trying to get people to understand how easy it is to get someone indoctrinated into these ideas.
And I think as much of the journey out of it is important, I think equally important is the journey into it, because I think if we understand how people can fall into these situations and fall into these traps, well, then potentially we can address them. We know what to look for, or even I guess someone who might be in a similar situation to the one you were in all those years ago, who might be looking at all right, well, this is about to happen. At least they can be aware of it. It's and hopefully, you wouldn't want anyone to be in that situation. So you thought you were going to get off, and look, from I guess the story, it seems as though it's there. I would have thought self-defense or at the very least, but 30 years is a fairly tough sentence. How did that affect you? Like, because that's it's I guess being found guilty. Were you expecting, if you were found guilty, to get a sentence along those? That's harsh.
Well, and that was part of my problem. I didn't expect to be found guilty. I didn't prepare myself for that, eventuality. And I went from like, oh my God, what just happened, to straight to, I'm going to destroy the world.
Angry young man.
Yeah, I was the angriest person that you would ever know back then. I didn't care about anything or anybody. I was like, you're going to send me to prison for defending myself, which is my natural right to do so, and you're telling me I'm wrong? Okay, I'm going to burn it all down.
It almost, the situation almost sounds like the Con Air. Have you ever seen the movie Con Air?
Yeah.
The start of that, where that puts him in there. So it sounds like almost a similar situation to that. So
very similar. Yeah. They used my training and my martial arts background as evidence against me in my case.
It's crazy. It's crazy. That's the system over there, though, I guess. So, yeah. All right. So you've got the gang, I guess, of skinheads. Now, obviously, when does that sort of come out? I guess you're sentenced at the age of 20. Is that something that happens pretty much straight away, or is it something that happens a few years down the track?
No, it was less than 2 years after I had gotten arrested that we started this gang. Within 5 months of me being in prison, we had started it and gotten things rolling with SPS. 1992 is when we started SPS. And a couple of years after that, now I was an atheist already at this point. I had already decided to become an atheist because while I was fighting in amateur leagues, making, a little bit of money doing that. And that was paying for me to attend Amherst Theological Seminary.
Okay.
And, yeah. Which
you're an atheist pastor as well.
Yes, I did graduate from.
Well, this is why we get on so well, mate. This is,
But while studying at Amherst and getting ready to finish all that, I had decided that, okay, well, now that I know more about the Apocrypha and actual biblical studies, this is bullshit.
It's amazing how often that happens. It's the best way to convert out of religion is to get into it. I'm just going to jump back a little bit. So you're in Trenton State Prison. Is that a big prison? Is it a maximum security?
It is.
What's Trenton State Prison?
Trenton State is a maximum security / supermax prison in the state of New Jersey. Okay. It's surrounded by a 30-foot wall, and 89% of the population of Trenton State Prison will never leave prison. They will die there.
Okay. So it's a tough place.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
How many people roughly is it that would be in that prison?
It was built for 1,400 inmates, and currently, the last time I checked, there are a little over 1,900 people there. So They are overbooked.
like a lot of the prisons in the US, I'm led to believe.
Yeah.
So, okay, so harsh prison. You've got the gang there. Obviously, there's not 1,900 people in the yard. You're in your. Is it division or?
Oh yeah. It's divided on so many different lines. Not just racial lines, but the gang lines. You have all kinds of members in there from different street gangs that stick with their own, but at the same time, they stick with their own race also.
Okay, so is it quite literally there's 1,900 people all gathered in the same place at the same time? It's not like there's 500 in this section, 500 in that section. Is it all thrown in?
Normally, you won't see every single person out in the main yard at the same time, because when they run the main yard, they're usually running, different jobs. You have people going to school or other programs or stuff like that. But you can get, close to everybody in the yard at the same time. There will be, 1,000 to 1,500 people in the yard any given time.
Okay, so there's a if that goes south and there's a huge brawl, I mean that's not controllable by any means. So
no.
Okay.
Yeah, and there have been plenty of riots in Trenton and other prisons.
Yeah, I can imagine. So I guess, the positive is you are able to find people that and you are able to find people that you can, I guess, who will look after you and keep you out of danger and take you under their wing. So this gang started pretty quick.
Yeah.
How many would you have had in your gang?
When we first started, there was very, very small. It was three of us that got together, and then we recruited about 10 or maybe 12 other guys. And within a few months after starting this, though, a few of us got transferred to other prisons. And the thing with New Jersey is, if you get in trouble in the prison that you're in, and I mean, usually a lot of trouble, you'll get transferred somewhere else. And I was one of those people. I had somebody, he was all big, blown up, hitting a weight pile every day, and thought he was going to intimidate me. That didn't work out very well. I shanked him. I won't go into details because I don't want YouTube to yank this off of your channel, but I got a weapon. I made a weapon, and I did what I had to do. And I got sent first to administrative segregation, and I spent 6 months there, pretty much 6 months in a hole. And then I went to Galway.
So 6 months in, and I've heard of the psychological effect that can have, because essentially it's no contact. Is that correct with anyone?
No, administrative segregation is different. Administrative segregation, you do still have contact with other inmates. You go to a smaller rec yard with a smaller amount of people, maybe twice a week, and you still get to come out of your cell, quite often. But you don't have the same privileges. You don't have the same visitation privileges. You're not allowed to get certain things, through the mail or whatever, like you would in general population. You're just segregated from the general population for a while. And after that, I went to Galway State Prison, another maximum security prison. And that's when I was introduced to my second religion, which was creativity. And I joined the World Church of the Creator, which is a white supremacist group. And they are an atheist-based religion. They are an anomaly as far as the atheist community.
So joining them, was this, once again, you found yourself, I guess, in a place where you're not knowing people? You've probably got the skinhead sort of attitude. Did you just gravitate towards them, or?
No, this was something completely different. They had heard me talking about being an atheist, and also heard about, me being a member of state prison skinheads and starting to study this, white nationalist ideology. And that's why they approached me and recruited me for their church. And they told me flat out, they saw me as being a strong white warrior.
Okay, so you were essentially the ideal candidate for them.
Yeah. I made a very good soldier.
So how many years are we into your sentence that you're in? Sorry, what was the name of the second prison?
Galway.
So, and this is still in New Jersey, is it?
Yeah.
Okay. So how far down the track are we at this point?
This is about 2 years into my prison sentence. So, I was still kind of new to prison, but at the same time, I had already kind of figured out all the rules and, the prison politics, so to speak.
Yeah. Okay. So you're a bit more world weary, I guess, for you're not sort of doe-eyed in the system.
Yeah.
So how long do you spend in Galway?
I spent almost 7 years in Galway.
Okay. And with the Creationist Church, how long did you spend with them?
I was
Or
in
Church of the
that.
Creator, sorry.
Yeah. Now I didn't immediately join that religion when they first approached me. That came about a couple of years after they first approached me, because like I said, I had already become an atheist and I wasn't really interested in religion. But I figured, hey, I'm in prison. I don't have anything better to do. Let me study this a little bit just to give me something to do, spend some time, waste some time on this and see where it goes. And that was my mistake. While I was studying this, I still had these guys talking to me about it. And I was still, looking into different things, different ideologies, getting all this propaganda thrown at me. And about 4 years into my prison sentence, I did end up joining this group, the Creativity Religion. I did become a member of that church. So now, that would have been about 1996.
So as far as the, I guess, looking at the numbers, in Norway, was it a similar thing with, let's say, the Nation of Islam and the was it the Hebrew
Black Hebrew Israelites?
Yeah. Okay. So you're finding that across those same groups across the prisons. Yeah. Okay. What kind of numbers did the Church of Creativity have in Norway?
Not many. There was only 4 of them there.
Oh, okay. So it's not the biggest gang to be a part of.
Well, they weren't classified as a gang. They are recognized by the United States government as a religion.
Okay.
So, yeah, they were not classified as a gang, and they didn't claim to be a gang. They did actually claim to be a religion.
So were they, I guess, associated with the skinheads, or I guess just hung out with the white folk, I guess, was it?
Yeah, and that's one of the things that drew me to them, I think, because 2 of the guys that were there said they weren't skinheads. That wasn't their lifestyle. But the other 2 were like, but we are skinheads. And I'm like, okay, so what is your group then? And they're like, we're a religion. We are the white racial religion. And they claim to be the most anti-Christian religion in the world because, in their view, Christianity is a Jewish religion created to bring about the downfall of the white race.
Okay. Right. So let's get into some. So that's obviously some of their beliefs. What other beliefs does this group have?
One of their key beliefs is what is good for the white race is of the highest virtue, and what is bad for the white race is the ultimate sin. And
now, when we say white race, I mean, are we talking? Is it a purely Anglo sort of thing, or are we talking? Are we including Russians, Slavs, Greeks? Where's that line drawn between white and not white?
Yeah, they are including Russians and Greeks, and anybody from the northern, higher northern hemisphere, I should say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, so basically the fairy skin, sort of similar to, I guess, the Nazi theology, where you had the perfect Aryans, and then there was a few subsets. Often, the further south you went, the worse it got, essentially.
Exactly.
Okay, so it seems to be a common theme in some of the racist ideologies, that it's sort of gets worse the further you spread out.
One of the biggest differences, though, is with the World Church of the Creator, they don't see them as subsets or anything. They see them as a completely different species from the white race. According to
Okay.
according to their beliefs, the white man is the only true human on the planet Earth. Everyone else is a subspecies of humanoid.
Oh, they're really going to get upset when they find out that most white people are interbred with Neanderthals, aren't they?
Oh yeah,
and technically the only pure humans are from Africa.
exactly.
So as far as like from a biological perspective goes, but okay, that's so. You're with this group for quite a while. There was 4 of you initially. Was that sort of the numbers throughout your time in Rollway? Was that pretty consistent?
No, right towards the end of my sentence, I did get sent to a medium custody prison,
Okay.
Riverfront State Prison in Camden, New Jersey, and there were actually about 30 people that were in the creativity religion when I got there, which was really surprising. I did not expect that.
Okay, so I guess that would have been comfortable, but obviously medium security, there's going to be a big difference, I guess, in the politics of prison there, I would imagine, or
Yeah.
So obviously you were sentenced to 30 years. You ended up doing 12, and I think you mentioned that the conviction was overturned. Is that correct?
Yeah.
What was the process that sort of led to that? Because I mean, obviously, 30 years to 12 years is a huge difference, and probably a big relief for you as well.
Yeah. I put myself through school. I actually took correspondence courses through Ohio State University to get my associate's degree in paralegal studies. And I started filing my own appeals and paperwork and fighting my case. And I eventually did win. I had to take it all the way to federal court and force New Jersey to change their laws. But I did win my case, and they overturned my conviction, and I went home. And I'm not going to lie, the day I got the paperwork saying that they had overturned my conviction, I cried like a baby.
I can imagine. And so you're in prison when you get that paperwork. It's sent to you. Once you get that paperwork, when do they let you out? When you're released?
I did actually have other charges. When I killed this gentleman, I ran and I tried to steal someone's car. I literally tried to carjack someone.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had a 15-year sentence for that. Was separate from the homicide.
So you still had
So I still had the robbery conviction. And when they overturned my 30 years, they told me, okay, well, we're overturning the homicide, but your conviction for the robbery still stands. You're automatically eligible for parole. So 2 weeks later, I went in front of the parole board and they told me, well, you only have 11 more months before you max out. But we're going to go ahead and parole you. And I told them, well, wait a minute. If I only have 11 more months, I don't want parole. And they
why is that?
Well, as the law states in New Jersey, if you max out your convictions, you don't owe any fines. You don't have any probation or anything like that. You don't have to report to anybody. And my biggest thing was you don't owe any fines. And I had a lot of money that I owed for doing this robbery. So I told them 11 more months. I've already been here for over 11 years. 11 more months is nothing. I've done more time than that in a hole. So you can go ahead and max me out.
I'm sure that's probably not something that they're going to hear every day.
No, they were shocked. Like they were like, "Are you sure?"
I guess that's the benefit of doing having the legal knowledge and having gone through that process. So so the day comes that you get out. Now, what's your relationship when you're leaving prison with white supremacy and in particular the Church of Creation? or the creator.
I was already questioning those beliefs. I had already reached a point, because one of the good things about me taking these classes from Ohio State to get my associate's degree is you don't get to just take classes for paralegal studies. You have to take other classes as well, to get your college credits. And I had started learning more about biology and evolution and history. The things that I learned, through going to college made me start questioning everything that I had learned over this, at 8-year journey when I started college about, these propagandist beliefs that I was being fed.
So there seems to be a similar theme when you went to seminary, that turned you against religion because you actually studied it, and when you that's and obviously studying here and studying history and biology, it led you to question those beliefs. So it just goes to show that I think the key is information and education.
Yeah. So by the time I did get out, now I had already had my associate's degree by then. So I had this knowledge from Ohio State, from getting actual, and in prison, that's the only way you're going to get books like that, is if you can afford to, take some kind of college course, because the prison itself is not going to offer those kind of books. So
how do you go actually studying in prison? I'd imagine that it's, while you're dealing with everything else, and I guess you've got, if you're in your cell, do you have to have the right cellmate to be able to study, or how does it, or is there a separate sort of section where you just go?
That was kind of key for me. Rahway and Trenton, if you have the kind of institutional infractions and history that I have, they put you in a single cell, because they put it in your file, does not play well with others. So for the most part, I didn't have cellmates. They put me in a cell by myself because they didn't want me to hurt somebody.
Yep. Okay. So it's worked to your benefit then, I guess, in that case.
Yeah. So I had plenty of time to study quietly by myself. And Ohio State, and now I don't know if it's still like that. You have to remember, this was back in the 1990s. You could get correspondence courses. And even if you were in prison, you could get different grants and, things like that. From what I understand, you cannot get Pell Grants anymore if you're in prison, which I think is ridiculous, because why would you stop somebody from getting an education?
Well, especially when, prisoners get out, they don't always have a lot of options for employment.
Yeah.
So, okay. Yeah. So you're out.
Yeah.
I guess all the everything else aside, what's that like, that first taste of freedom? I guess, how long does it take you? I guess you've gone in at 20, you're coming out at what, 31, 32?
Yeah, I was 31 years old when I got out. So
almost half of your life, or certainly half of your, the life that you remember, you've spent institutionalized and pretty much all of that's where you've grown up. What happens when you get out? How do you adjust?
It was hard. It was mind-blowing. For me, one of the first things I did was I got whatever job I could get. And I actually started working as a helper with a heating and cooling firm, making minimum wage, $7.25 an hour. Is
wow.
Getting paid.
Incidentally, for anyone in Australia who is listening, just realize that the minimum wage that we have here ain't that bad.
Yeah. So that was one of the first things I did. I got myself a job. It took me almost 2 months after I got out of prison to get my driver's license back. And one of the biggest things, and Luckily, I had someone, tell me about all this because they had done a good chunk of, prison time before and gotten out. Before I left prison, they told me the first thing you need to do when you get out is go to the Social Security office, get a Social Security card, and get an ID card, and then go get a job. Whatever job it is, get a job. And that's exactly what I did. Luckily, I did have family that was still there for me and helped me get back on my feet. So I didn't have to worry about living on the street or anything like that. But not everybody has, that kind of family. I got lucky. And
it sounds like you were fortunate there.
Yeah. I did move on to a different job. I started doing construction for a while, things like that. And then I did eventually leave New Jersey and move to Pennsylvania, where I live now. And moving to Pennsylvania was the last step in my deconversion from, these hate groups and ideologies, because I started working in a factory up here, and one of my coworkers was actually in the military with my father. And I had known this man for a long time. He was one of the people that helped me move up here. And when we started talking, I eventually admitted to him that I had become a skinhead while I was in prison. And his question to me was very simple. Why? And I couldn't answer that question truthfully and completely. And that was it for me. That was the day I decided I honestly don't know why I let people push me into something so horrendous. And that was it. I stepped away from it.
Do you think your prison experience would have been different, or do you think safety could have been more of an issue for you had you not have attached yourself to these groups?
I think if I wouldn't have attached myself to those groups, I may have actually even gotten out of prison sooner. I may have had other judges say, hey, this kid's actually doing good things. He's not, he's not a threat to anybody. And I think a lot of my state appeals were, dismissed because they would look at my prison record and say, man, this kid, even if this was self-defense, he went to prison. He started being even more violent. He joined up with these extremist groups. He's pushing this, racial ideology and trying to recruit people for these groups. And he's got an entire gang folder. And we're not letting him out. He's a threat now.
That's an interesting, I guess, perspective in Heights. Because look, I'd have to imagine that not every white person in prison is a white supremacist, or certainly they're obviously everyone's hanging out with their own. But I guess what was the relationship like with the non-white supremacist white people?
We would hang out with them, and we would talk to them, and we would constantly, even if they said no 1,000 times, we would try and recruit them. Now there are those people that, they're never going to join, but they're still decent people and you hang out with them. But it's known that, hey, he's cool and everything, we'll hang out with him. But if he gets into something with, the blacks or the Spanish, well, he's on his own because he made that choice to associate with them.
Okay, so that person wouldn't be protected if they were attacked, or it's just very much look after your own. So you've gotten out. You've obviously you've started on this journey where you've, and it sounds like education has started this process for you, and obviously being on the outside and I guess being back in the real world, so to speak. It's a very different experience. And on reflection, what do you think the key moment for you was that where you just sort of went, you know what, I don't believe this, and in fact I need to, because what people don't realize is that you are an activist, you do fight against racism.
Yeah.
What was the light bulb moment for you, do you think?
I would have to say, my dad's friend Junior. He
is Junior, was he white or was he
no, he's a black man.
Okay,
yeah.
Yep.
And he was my light bulb moment. Now, like I said, although I'm from New Jersey and he lived in Pennsylvania, I did know this man growing up. Him and my dad were really good friends, and he's one of the people that, helped me move up to Pennsylvania. And just talking with him and having a dialogue, and once I did tell him that I was a skinhead while I was in prison and everything, we started having discussions about race. And he himself, and this is almost 13 years ago that Junior and I started having these discussions. And he started telling me about, systemic racism and things like that. And that just completely changed my entire mindset. And I had no justification for white supremacy or, racism or anything like that. It was the same as coming out of indoctrination from religion. I came out of my indoctrination from white supremacy and realized that there's no truth to it at all. None. And
what's your relationship with the Church of the Creator been like since? I know there's some stories here, but I'll let you tell them.
As most of the people in the chat know, as well as Chris, I am labeled as a race traitor. And I have received countless, death threats and derogatory letters. And I've had a couple of people tell me I need to leave some of their comments up on my channel. I kind of struggle with that because some of those comments are horrendous. And I really don't want other people exposed to that. So I don't think I'm going to leave their comments up there, but yeah, they've already started trolling my channel. Like I said, I've gotten death threats from them and everything else. And I did, while I was still living in New Jersey, I did have somebody, shoot at me. I can't confirm whether or not they were with the church, but I did have someone shoot at me. And that case has never been solved because I couldn't ID the person or anything like that. Luckily, I didn't get actually shot, but yeah, they did take a shot at me. So.
Okay, so it sounds like a good, loving religion, like most of them that you try and let. So I've got a question, and anyone who does have a question, feel free to throw the questions. We're getting close-ish to the hour mark, and it probably won't go too much beyond that if it does. So if anyone does have a question, please do throw it in the chat. Now we've got a fellow who you probably haven't heard of, a guy called Jay from the Nevermore Tavern. I don't know. Have you dealt with him by chance?
Oh yeah,
flashing the merch. I love it. Flashing the merch. So he wants to know where was that wonderful question he had. How are different religions treated in prison?
It really all depends. Of course, the Christians do not get any kind of sympathy or anything like that from Nation of Islam or the Muslims. And I should have mentioned the 5% Nation of Gods and Earths, which are not the same as the Nation of Islam. They're their own separate group. Yeah, now the 5%ers usually don't get along with the Muslims or the people from the Nation of Islam unless it comes down to a racial thing. And then, of course, they band together. But they do fight amongst themselves at the same time. And then, of course, you have the Christians who try and claim that they're just all about peace and love and they don't want to be bothered with anybody. Unless, of course, you have skinheads that still believe in, God and practice Christianity. And as far as my former religion, World Church of the Creator, they don't like anybody. If you practice a religion that believes in some kind of deity or higher power, well, you're just an idiot and you're viewed as the enemy with the rest of them.
Okay, so hang on. So it's the Twitter atheists.
Yeah.
Apologies, I am a Twitter atheist, so I can poke fun at myself. Okay, so we've got a question from actually I might expand on that just a little bit, and then there's a good question from Puck in there.
Yeah.
So, well, actually, Jay has asked, what about Buddhism? Do you see many Buddhists in jail?
No, I've only known one person in prison that was a Buddhist, and he was an older Vietnamese gentleman.
All right, so Jay, the trick here is don't go to jail because you won't have a gang.
Yeah.
Just you really need to stick on the straight and narrow there. How about as far as I guess the system? Because you often hear that people are more likely to get parole if they've turned their life around and given it to Jesus, and I know that I'll often see things like that. One of the big claims for people when they come out of jail is, I found God while I was in jail. Is that all bunk? Or
some people do actually become Christians after they get to prison. And now, and I should clarify this, New Jersey, I don't know if this is all states in the US, but New Jersey is set up where if you have a predatory offense, you don't go to the same kind of prisons that I went to. They have their own separate prisons for people who commit those kind of charges. So guys that I saw that would find Jesus or find religion when they got to prison, I do believe that they were honest about it. They decided, hey, I'm going to convert to Christianity. It did not in any way, shape, or form help them get parole. Nobody cared.
So you're not getting the big event, because I know I remember when I was in the church, one of the things or one of the outreaches, and I was never involved in it, but was always the outreach to the jails where they'd go and preach to the prisoners, and I always sort of thought, well, that's an interesting concept. Are we going to go in and save all the hardened criminals and bring them to a hands in the air, happy clappy kind of religious experience? How did you deal with, I guess, the outreach programs?
I just told them point blank when they would approach me or whatever, I'm an atheist, I'm an ordained minister, I graduated from Amherst, keep it moving, go talk to the next cell, I'm not interested.
All right, so we've got so Puck's actually put it's a good 2-part question, but he's also got a second one in. I'll get you to do this. Puck would like to confirm a hypothesis and ask, could you please say the phrase, how does your worldview account for the ultimacy of reality?
He wants me to say that phrase?
He wants you to say that phrase. How does your worldview account for the ultimacy of reality? I don't know if that's an in-joke.
I don't know. How does my worldview account for the ultimacy of reality?
I guess you've said the phrase. There you go. Okay. There we go. Now, his question was, so it's a 2-part question. What is lacking in the support system for people coming out of the prison system? And should this system be provided by the government, or should private organisation take it up? So I guess let's tackle the first bit. What is lacking in the support system for people coming out of prison? You did mention that you were pretty lucky when you came out. What about for those people who aren't as lucky as you are? What's their reality?
I think, in my honest opinion, We do have, we've made a lot of progress with prison reform. There are a lot of prisons now doing pre-release programs, which is very good to educate people on, hey, this is what you need to do when you get out. These are, places that can help you when you get out. One thing we need, though, is release programs and more halfway houses for people that are doing a significant amount of prison time. If somebody does, 2 or 3 years, it's not going to be that hard for them to readjust to society when they get out. If someone's doing a decade or longer, a lot of stuff can change in 10 years.
Yeah, because what year did you go in?
I got arrested August 24th of 1991, and I went to jail that day. I did not see society again until March 8th of 2001. Sorry, 2004.
So you've essentially missed the millennium, 9/11, I guess.
Yeah. Now, that's why I brought up 2001. In 2001, I was in prison when 9/11 occurred, and I actually saw that from my cell. I was in Northern State Prison, and I saw that occur right across the river. So when I got out,
you actually.
Oh yeah, I watched the towers fall.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah. So when I got out 3 years later, it was a completely different world. From 1991 to 2004, there were new laws. There was new money. Everything had changed. Cars,
hell,
clothes.
The internet. I mean, the internet wasn't a thing in the early 90s.
No. Cell phones. Everybody had cell phones. Bluetooth.
Is there programs to help people? Like, obviously, you'd be aware of what's going on the outside, but then how do you?
Well, that's the thing. You're aware, but you're kind of not aware of everything going on. Like I said, money changed while I was in prison, and I had no idea. The first time I got out and somebody put actual bills in my hand that had hologram images and watermarks and things like that, I was like, the hell is this? I'm about to punch you in your face. And the guy's like, for what? And I'm like, what the hell is it? What is this, Monopoly money? And he's like, did you just get out of prison? I was like, yeah, why? And he goes, oh, wow, man, you're in for a shock. And actually had to tell me about the new bills because I had no idea that, there were new money. I had no clue.
Okay. That's now apparently what Puck has said is that your voice sounds very similar to popular apologist and good friend of the channel who will be watching, Darth Dawkins. So he's wondering if that's apparently one of Darth Dawkins' most often used phrases, and wanted to see if you're the same person. I don't know. Did we debate? I mean, I don't think you're Darth.
No, definitely not Darth.
I can assure everyone here this is not Darth Dawkins. I do know Darth Dawkins' real name, and it ain't Ed. So sorry, Puck. It's
hey, yo, Puck, we had a good interview. Don't make me have to come over there and deal with you, all right?
Now, we've got a question from Manda, Mama Atheist. Hey, good to see you there, Manda. She wants to know, and I know the answer to this one, but I like the answer to this question. How do you take your coffee, and have you always drunk it that way?
I take my coffee black and strong, and yes, that's how I've always taken it.
And what kind of coffee are you drinking today? Just for all the people out there.
I am once again drinking Death Wish coffee, thanks to the mighty Jesus and Raven.
Good to see. Good to see.
And yes, I follow the directions on the bag, and there are probably 2.5 teaspoons for every 6-ounce cup of coffee.
Oh, excellent. Now, the Joking Atheist has put a question, and it might have been something we've covered, but I'll throw it out there anyway. How many prisoners do you think turn to religion in prison for point scoring in the parole system? Even though you said it doesn't really make a difference, do you think people still do it?
A few. It's not as prevalent as a lot of people think. I think I don't know, in 12 and a half years that I spent in prison down there, I think I probably only knew 4 or 5 people that tried it, and it didn't work for any of them.
So if you're in prison, just don't worry about Jesus, follow Jesus.
Yeah.
Now, we've got a question from Gary. Gary Priestley, good to see you there, mate. What's the biggest misconception about white supremacy? Are there any?
The biggest misconception about white supremacy is that it's not as big as people say it is. White supremacy is bigger than people say it is, and a lot of times they hide in plain sight. I've actually shown, well, I told you about creativity religion being in Australia. You didn't even know it at the time.
No.
I told Jeff Breeze, Godless Scummer, I showed him that there were quite a few of them in the UK, and he had no idea at the time. They hide in plain sight, and it's not just the creativity religion. There are a lot of groups out there that they don't come straight out and say they are white supremacist groups, and people think they're just political activists or whatever. And one of those groups was Patriot Front. I exposed them on my channel, and a lot of people were like, wow, I didn't realize they were connected to people like Nathan D'Amigo and had a racist past. And I'm like, now you do.
Now that's something interesting, because on your channel you do expose a lot of these the racist ideologies. So you haven't just walked away; you have completely done a 180. So you've gone on the attack. Why? I guess I would imagine, especially considering that the years that you had away, it would be a lot easier for you to just just go on with life and just put it in the past. Why are you so active, or what makes you so passionate about fighting it?
My grandsons. I have 2 grandsons. I don't want them ever having to go through the same kind of madness that I did. I want to make this a better world. I want to leave something behind that's a true positive change. Because what's going on right now, the world's on fire right now, especially the United States, and something has to change. It has to get better. And it's my job as a human being to make a change, to at least try and make things better.
No, that's good. That's good. Now I'll do a last call for any other questions that people have. If you do have any, get them in quick while we're waiting to see if there is anything else that pops up. Mate, tell us where people can find you. I mean, I think most people who are here, watching live would know where to find you. But for those who are listening to the podcast, or maybe on Facebook, what's the easiest way to find you and I guess support the work you do?
Yep. Look up the Grumpy Old Dude on YouTube. And if you go to my About section on my YouTube channel, you can find all the links for my Twitter, Facebook, and Patreon. I'm having issues with Ko-Fi right now. I'm trying to put up some videos on Ko-Fi, but for whatever reason, I'm having tech issues with that. I think it's on their end, but you can always go to Ko-Fi, buy me a coffee, because the GOD loves his strong black coffee.
Now we have had a question come in, and actually this is an interesting one. This is one that I don't know the answer to necessarily. Do you support BLM or All Lives Matter? And I guess I'll clarify that by saying, obviously, with BLM, there's the concept. I would imagine that you absolutely support the concept.
Yes.
And I would imagine you support the concept of all lives. I think everyone supports the concept of lives. I guess as far as what's happening in the US, do you support, or is that something you'd rather leave?
No, I'll answer that. Yeah, I definitely support the concept of BLM. Yes, for anybody out there that wants to have this argument, yes, all lives matter. Right now in the United States, Black lives are the ones that are in danger, and that's why they matter. If your house is burning down, you don't tell people, hey, all houses matter. You want everybody to focus on your house because your house is burning. So, yeah, I definitely do support Black Lives Matter. I cannot confirm this, but I do think there are two different organizational fronts for Black Lives Matter.
I tend to agree with that.
Yeah. Some of the people that are running the organizational parts of Black Lives Matter are becoming extremists in their own views, and I will not and cannot support that. When
I think when it comes to a bunch of white guys, burning car yards, I think that's kind of that's got nothing to do with that. That's just
no. Those people out there within BLM and Antifa that are white and are causing a lot of this destruction and chaos. A lot of them have been found out that they actually are white supremacists posing as Antifa and BLM.
Yeah, to basically cause that divide. Actually, I don't know. Did you see? And being a former fighter, you might appreciate. Did you see the video with John Jones approaching the white Antifa kids that were going to spray paint stuff, and they weren't arguing with him, were they?
Oh, no.
I'm not a John Jones fan, but I'm on the Cormier, so I like Daniel Cormier. But I saw that and I thought that is just bloody classic.
They just started handing over spray paint cans, like, here you go. Sorry, yeah.
Yep. Yes, sir. We won't do that again. Please don't hurt us.
That was great.
Now we've got another question from Jay. Once again, a two-part question. What is your biggest regret from your days in prison, and what is the best thing that came out of your stay?
My biggest regret is not talking to more people. Just getting sucked into this conspiracy theory and hateful lifestyle. I could have had a bigger world, if I hadn't done that. The biggest, I guess the best thing was getting that associate's degree, getting that education. It's actually helped me with some other stuff after, prison. My divorce from my first wife being one of the biggest things, because I filed all my own paperwork, so I didn't have to pay anything to get rid of her.
Yes, that's definitely going to come in handy. So I'm going to throw with the last question here, and actually, hang on, someone's jumped in with a question before my last question. What are your thoughts on Jesse Lee Peterson's views? I'm not too sure who that is, so if you do know, I might get you to maybe preface who Jesse Lee Peterson is.
I'm still kind of looking into him. I'm not going to blatantly say he's a white supremacist. I don't know yet. I have started looking into that, but I have so many different things going on right now. I haven't gotten in depth into it.
So it's on the list, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yep. I think we've all got one of those lists. All right, so I'm going to throw the final question out, and if you could have a conversation with yourself, going back in time to, I guess, the time that you've been sentenced and you're angry, and what would you say to yourself, I guess, and how would you deal with yourself?
Be strong. Don't give up. And remember who you are. Don't forget who your true self is.
I think that's good advice. I think that's good advice for anyone. Mate, thank you. It's been a good conversation. I know I've certainly learned a lot more about you. And one thing I am, I'm just someone who I'm very proud to call a friend. I think over the last few months, as we've gotten to know each other, most importantly, you've become a Dragon supporter. So it's we've had Ed watching some rugby league games, and he's not that he really got a choice, but he has converted to the Dragons. So it's hopefully he doesn't research the history of the Dragons, otherwise he might discover that they're just a perennial disappointment and walk away.
Hey, I got a bad history, but I turned out pretty damn good. So don't.
The thing with the Dragons is, as you learn with the Dragons, we've got a great history. That's the problem. It's all history. So we won 11 comps in a row. It was wonderful. I'll fill you in. We'll do a deep dive into the tales of the Dragons.
We'll get it back. Everybody has a damn side. We'll get it back.
Yeah. We've just had 10 years of it, but that's okay. We might watch. We'll watch the 2010 grand final together one day. That always makes me happy. So, Ed, mate, thank you for coming on the channel.
Thank you.
Obviously, all the links are going to be below. And look, if you like Ed, he's on Friday Night Six Pack with me every Friday. I mean, you've become a regular. I just assume you're on every week now. So, and I quite like it that way. That's
me
all
too.
Good. So if you do like Ed, make sure you jump on. And look, if you can support Ed and the work that he does, it is important work. Please do. Even if it's $1 a month, or you just want to shout the man a coffee. If you can do that, that certainly will help. Ed, thanks for coming on the Atheist Pastor Podcast and the channel, mate. It has been a pleasure. Everyone who's in the chat, thank you for joining in the conversation. And there's been some pretty interesting stuff happening in the chat. It's always good to read. And for those who are watching the podcast or Facebook or wherever, or watching, listening, however you're doing it, thank you for joining us. And don't forget to subscribe on whichever platform you're on. Come across to YouTube, of course, and subscribe so you can watch the live streams when they happen. And have a great morning, afternoon, evening, or whatever it is, wherever you are on this wonderful planet we all occupy.